Imagine getting pulled over by the police and sitting right next to you is a dead body. Not hidden, not in the trunk, just sitting there. Like it belongs. Now imagine that's only the beginning, because inside the car, police would soon find something even worse. A small piece of paper, a list, 65 coded entries, each one believed to represent a victim. This is the story of the man they would call the scorecard killer. The story begins with a man named Randy Kraft. At first glance, there is nothing about him that stands out. He wasn't loud. He wasn't violent in public. He wasn't the kind of person you'd cross the street to avoid. In fact, he was the opposite. He was intelligent, educated, well-spoken. He attended college. He worked in computers at a time when that was rare and respected. To his neighbors and co-workers, Randy Kraft was normal. But that's the thing about some of the most dangerous people in history. They don't look dangerous. They blend in. They smile. They shake your hand. And all the while, they're hiding something far darker. Behind closed doors, Kraft lived a completely different life. He spent time driving along highways, especially late at night, and during the 1970s, that meant one thing. Back then, hitchhiking was common. Young men, especially traveling, looking for rides, trying to get from one place to another. And for someone like Randy Kraft, they were the perfect targets, because once they got into his car, there was no one to protect them. Kraft wasn't impulsive. He was calculated, organized, patient. He would pick up his victims and gain their trust. Maybe a friendly conversation, maybe a promise of a safe ride. But at some point, everything would change. Investigators later discovered that Kraft used drugs to control his victims. Alcohol, sedatives. Once they were incapacitated, he had complete control, and what followed was brutal. This wasn't just murder, this was prolonged torture. Victims were abused for hours, sometimes longer. Some showed signs of extreme physical violence. Others had been mutilated, and in many cases, the bodies were dumped along highways, left to be discovered, or not discovered at all. Throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, bodies began appearing across California. Young men, similar circumstances, but at the time, no one connected the dots. Different jurisdictions, different locations, different investigators. And so, the killings continued. While all of this was happening, Kraft continued living his normal life. He had a long-term partner. He held jobs. He interacted with people daily. No one suspected that he might be responsible for something so horrific. That's what made him so effective. He didn't fit the stereotype. Then, in 1983, everything changed. It was a routine night. Police officers noticed a car driving erratically, swerving, suspicious. So they pulled it over. Behind the wheel was Randy Kraft. At first, it seemed like a standard traffic stop, but then officers noticed something strange. There was someone in the passenger seat, slumped over, unresponsive. When police checked, they realized the truth. The man in the passenger seat was dead, a U.S. Marine, just sitting there next to Randy Kraft. At that moment, this stopped being a traffic violation and became something much bigger. Police immediately arrested Kraft. Then they searched his car, and what they found was chilling. Inside, they discovered evidence linking him to multiple crimes. Photographs, items belonging to victims. But most disturbing of all was a piece of paper. It didn't look like much. Just a list. Short phrases, 2 or 3 words each. Things like idiom, Marine Head 2 and 1. At first glance, it made no sense. But investigators quickly realized this wasn't random. This was a record, a personal log, a scorecard. Each entry believed to represent a victim. Kraft was only convicted of 16 murders, But that list had 65 entries, and investigators believe that many of those entries correspond to real victims. Some identified, many not, which means the true number of victims may never be known. As police dug deeper, they began linking Kraft to unsolved murders across California. Patterns emerged, victim profiles matched, timelines aligned, locations made sense, and slowly the full picture came into focus. This wasn't just a killer. This was a serial predator, operating for over a decade. Kraft's trial began in the late 1980s, and it was massive, complex, filled with disturbing evidence. Prosecutors laid out their case, piece by piece, victim by victim, story by story, and at the center of it all was that scorecard? But Kraft didn't confess. He didn't admit anything. Instead, he claimed innocence. His defense argued the evidence was circumstantial. Talis didn't prove anything. There was reasonable doubt. But for the jury, the pattern was too strong. In 1989, the jury reached a decision. Guilty. Randy Kraft was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death. To this day, Kraft sits on death row, and he still maintains his innocence. He has never explained the scorecard, never confessed to the crimes, never given closure to the families. That's what makes this case so haunting, because even though he was caught, even though he was convicted, there are still questions. How many victims were there? Really? What do all the entries on the list mean? And how many families still don't know what happened to their loved ones? A man who looked normal, who lived a quiet life, but behind the scenes was keeping score. And if that list is real, then the truth is far darker than we'll ever fully understand. Because somewhere out there are names that were never written down, faces that were never identified, lives that were taken without anyone ever knowing why. And that is the story of Randy Kraft, the scorecard killer.